Welcome to the first ever PC build in-depth on ZXTech. Now, a lot of people have been asking for this kind of PC build video for a long time. But the thing is, it's very difficult to shoot, especially if you only have one camera and you are a one-man band. Thankfully though, I now have an A cam, a B cam, as well as a C cam, so I can shoot different multiple angles to keep the video interesting. So let's talk about the build. Let's jump straight into it. Okay. God. Oh Lord. Okay, so I've stripped all the parts from my previous rig and they're all laid out right here, and I think it's a good time to run through the parts one more time just in case you didn't catch it the first time. Let's start off with the PSU here. This is the Fractal Ion 860p. This is a very good power supply, 80 plus platinum. I mean, it's built like a tank. The cable connects are like smooth like butter, which is indicative of good build quality, I guess. And it's nice. I mean, it's really solidly built. It's an A-tier power supply on Linus Tech Tips forums. A lot of good reviews about it. And it's very, very silent because most of the time the fans don't whir up unless it goes past a certain load. So that is very nice to see. It's fully modular as well, which will help with our cable management. Now let's move on to the RAM. This is going to be a tweak for this video. Now in this PC, we currently have a Corsair 16GB kit that is non-RGB, but it's a bit boring even though it's very thematic with the Corsair case. So we're going to slot in these G-Skill Trident Z 16GB RGB RAM, because if this case is all about RGB, then the RAM's got to be all about RGB as well, because why not? It's not a very fast set of RAM, however, it's only 2400 MHz, so I will swap it back out after the video for my daily driver, but it's just for aesthetics. Now let's move on to the GPU. This is the RTX 3060 Ti. Unfortunately, it's the LHR version, so it's not going to be amazing for crypto mining. If not, I will have sold it for a good profit by now, or been crypto mining with it. No, it's just a normal 3060 Ti. It's an LHR version, and it gets the job done. I've been using this for gaming in a bit, more than enough for 1080p gaming, and it should be good for video editing. Now the main reason I'm using this in my video editing rig is simply because it's an NVIDIA card. So it's got CUDA, it's got the NVENC encoder, and these are two things that really help with video editing performance, especially with the 2021 Premiere Pro update that was, I think, launched like 6-8 months ago. That made NVIDIA GPUs just the way better choice to go with if you're getting a GPU for video editing on Premiere Pro. On things like Final Cut, I guess it matters less, and for DaVinci Resolve, AMD is also pretty good. But on Premiere Pro, you have to go with NVIDIA because of the NVENC encoder. Adobe have not optimized Premiere Pro at all for AMD GPUs, so you're going to be wanting a NVIDIA GPU for editing on Premiere. So that's why we have the 3060 Ti here. Now let's move on to the CPU motherboard combination and also the CPU cooler. What's funny is I have a Corsair H110i downstairs, but because I don't have the CPU mounting for AMD Ryzen, I can't actually use it with this motherboard. I can't use it with this combination and have everything sync up through Corsair's Hue software, unfortunately, and have everything like RGB perfect, but it is what it is, and this is still a very good cooler. So this is the Fractal Lumen 240. It's really pretty and it's quite quiet as well, definitely respectable. And the motherboard here is the X570 Aorus Master. We already have a 1TB SSD installed here. We're going to throw in another 1TB SSD. We're going to be throwing in, I think it's the ADATA XPG 8200 or something like that, basically to give another 1TB, and that will be my scratch disk for video editing, because video files take up a lot of space. Having a 1TB drive dedicated to video editing is going to give me good performance. That's very important. So that's what we've got here. We're going to go with 16 gigs of RAM, as I said before. This is the 16 gig kit that I'm actually going to be using, this Corsair kit right here, but obviously we will swap it out so that there's more RGBs when we do the view later. This is the X570 Master, by the way. Apart from the fact that X570 boards have a stupid fan in them that make them really noisy, this is a very nice board. I mean, the onboard audio is really quite good, can power pretty high impedance headphones like the Audio-Technica R70X quite well. Not amazingly, but definitely no problem here. It's got a built-in I/O shield. I mean, it looks good, it's very stable, great for overclocking as well. All that is lovely jubbly. And of course, the CPU in here is the Ryzen 7 3700X, a CPU that I have bought, then bought again in my lifetime. So it is a CPU I'm very familiar with, and it's going to be more than enough for video editing. Obviously, I'm not going to reinstall the CPU and reinstall the all-in-one water cooler, because I already have it and I don't have like a spare tube of thermal paste to reapply the thermal compound, so I'm not going to go through that hassle. If you want to learn how to install AMD Ryzen CPU, there are plenty of guides out there, and since AMD Ryzen AM4 is actually an end-of-life, dead-end platform, chances are your next PC will either be a new platform from AMD, the Ryzen 6000 series CPUs, or Intel's 12th gen, which will require another guide. Be real short, let's get back into the building process. Now, when you're building a PC, the first thing you want to do is be installing the CPU and the RAM into the motherboard. The CPU you install first because it's the most fragile part, also the most difficult step. But the RAM, you kind of do it because it's also the easiest. It's really as easy as finding out which slots to put your RAM into first on your motherboard by looking at your manual, and then taking your RAM sticks, aligning the notch after pulling back the tabs, pushing them in until you heard a nice, very satisfying click. Honestly, the easiest and honestly best part of building a PC is installing the RAM. You're just gonna slide it in, and then you hear the click. Instant performance the moment you hear that click. It's just 8 gigs of RAM worth of performance. Just, that's it. Very simple, best part of installation. Now, generally, I wouldn't recommend you install your AIO like this and just leaving it hanging. I don't want to remove the AIO and then put it back on because I don't want to have to reapply thermal compound. I don't have spare thermal compound with me right now to do that. So we're just going to continue on. So we're going to prep the case next, and prepping the case is real. You're going to need to remove the plastic wrapping on this case. So a little peel test. That is so satisfying. And because you get tempered glass on the front with this case as well, with the 4000X, you don't just get one peel test, you get 2. I consider that an excellent little bonus. There you go. There you go. All right. So there you go. All right. So this is where you would find your screws, all the screws that you need in this hard drive bay right here. Now, this hard drive bay is not something that you'll probably be using considering SSDs are all the rage now, but if you want it, you can put 2 hard drives here. Generally, most people don't use SATA drives nowadays. Okay, so now the first step that I like to do when it comes to building my PC after prepping the case and getting all the screws and ensuring that I have all of that is to install my PSU. But before we install the PSU, I want to install the power cables onto the PSU. So we have a modular power supply, and what that means is my power cables all come disconnected and you have to use the right one. So the side that does not have any labeling on it is the side that goes into the power supply in the case of this particular PSU, and the side that has the labeling that says CPU or 24-pin motherboard or GPU is the side that goes into the respective part that is labeled after. So once we've got the cables in, which we are putting it in first because once we put this PSU in the case, it's very difficult to reach these tight to fit holes. Once we got it in, what we're going to do is we're going to just slide this PSU into the case as such. Now I want to shoot some close-up of this, but this is a two-handed job, so I'm not able to do so. Ow! And there you go. Sha-la-la-la-la, that gets the job done. So what you want to do is after you slide it in, you line up the holes and make sure they're aligned with the back of the case. And then you're just gonna line it up and you screw in the right screws according to the manual into each screw hole, which will secure your power supply in place. There you go. Ow. Ouch. Fun fact, PC cases are very sharp and you cut yourself a lot on them. Oh yeah, and one thing that I want to talk about is how I'm orientating my power supply. So you might notice that my power supply is oriented with the fan intake upwards. The reason for this is simple. I'm planning to put this on a carpet, so I want the fan to be pointing upwards so it intakes air from inside the case rather than below the case and cools itself that way. Now the reason for this is because I'm going to put it on a carpet, and the carpet is going to suffocate the power supply if it was trying to suck air from below the case. So that's the main reason why. So I'm just going to pre-arrange the cables as much as possible because I know where things are laid out on this motherboard. So yeah, this is what I'm going to do for now. You don't have to do it. This is just how I do it. I'm still going to teach you how to install a motherboard. It's really quite easy. Now, when I first started building a PC, it was quite daunting because you had to install your standoffs yourself, and there were so many standoff holes, like you didn't know which holes to put the standoffs in. But nowadays, it's pre-installed, it's pretty standardized, and I'm just going to show you what Corsair has done here. It's the same as pretty much every case manufacturer. We've got pre-installed standoffs. This is pre-installed standoffs. These are what you call standoffs, and they're basically where your motherboard rests, and then you're going to screw the motherboard in from the other side with the right screws. So there you go. Now, if you're using a lower end motherboard than I am, because you're broke, which is respectable, your motherboard will not have a built-in I/O shield, which is supposed to cut out, electromagnetic interference from your PCs and stuff. Truthfully, you don't really need to use an I/O shield. It's really more for aesthetics. But basically, what you need to do is you need to slap in an I/O shield over here, and that's pretty much it if yours is not built in. Mine is built in because we flexing up today. We got a posh motherboard today, so we're going to install the motherboard. Now this is going to be a bit more difficult than your average install because, well, I just chipped the pane like an idiot. And also because there's a CPU cooler literally attached to the motherboard right now. So it's really just sliding it in this way. I don't think you can see this. I'm basically just sliding it into the I/O hole like this, inwards, and then I'm just gonna gently place it down, well, as gentle as I can get. I really chipped the pane, it's so annoying. Why did I do that? That was a bad accident. Okay, all right, there you go. Perfection, almost. Okay, so once that is in and everything is kind of slotted in, the IO shield is comfortably in, or the IO is in the right slot, what we're gonna do is we're gonna screw in the motherboard next. So what we're gonna do is get the right screws and then just screw it into the motherboard screw holes. Is it that hard to comprehend, millennial? I don't know these days, I don't know my audience, I don't know what they like, I don't know what people watch. I just know my views drop no matter what I try. Yeah, just screw it into the screw holes. Now, because I am not a thorough person, and this is also not this is a build for myself, I am going to literally not screw all the screws that are required in. I mean, it's not compulsory, so long as you're confident enough that the screws will hold the motherboard to the motherboard, to this motherboard standoffs, to the PC case, you will be fine. But if you want to be secure, you can put all 9 screws in, or 10 or 11, depending on the motherboard and depending on your layout. But for me, I generally just put 4 in the corners, or just as many as I feel like. Once I get bored, I just go, you know what, screw this. And move on. I feel like the center one is the most important because it's the center one. Don't even install the center one. What are you doing? Now, obviously, this is a more unique situation because, well, the AIO is already installed. But since the AIO is already installed, what we want to do next is we want to install the radiator into the case. And obviously, what I'm going to do here, ouch, is I'm going to be installing the radiator in the top of the case. Now, before we do the AIO, I'm not going to be a careless idiot, and I'm going to actually install like the cables that will be hard to reach here once the AIO is in. So, you see, this is why I don't do PC build guides, because people laugh at the Verge PC build guide, but it's really hard to shoot a PC build guide, especially when you're a one-man team. There you go. Get in there, come on. Don't be a loser. There you go. Good boy. I have plenty of experience building PCs. My main problem is that I have the psychomotor skills of an absolute mongrel, and as a result I struggle building PCs still to this day. I've built like at least 15, 20, 30 PCs. Like, I've built a lot of PCs in my time. Just go in the hole, man. You're not even that big, so I think like you are. Are you compensating or something? Okay, there you go. I think the biggest thing that people are, the biggest annoying thing in PC building is that you build something and then you install something and that something blocks the thing that you forgot to put in the first place. It gets really frustrating. So make sure you do a check if you can. And I generally will do that, and that is what I'm doing right now. See, this is why I prefer air cooling, boys. All day, every day, I prefer air cooling for this very simple reason. It's so much less complicated to install. You just kind of slot it in and you screw it down. And there's like fan cables, but that's it. This you have to arrange, you have to adjust, you have to freaking plan. So I generally recommend for beginners, if you're building a PC, build with a air cooler rather than a all-in-one water cooler, because it's just clumsy. There's more things to screw in, there's more points of failure, there's more annoying things to watch out for. I just prefer air cooling. Sorry, man. Sorry Fractal, sorry Corsair, sorry everyone that makes a water cooler. I'm a staunch air cooler fan. Ow, I just dropped it on my motherboard, it hurts. Problem is, how do we do that cable management? So I'm gonna have to run the AIO like this so that the cables go to the back of the case. But it's not a big deal. So back to vertical. And let's install this AIO really, really easily. It's not a difficult task. It's just like 8 screws and we're gonna screw it in. So this is the position I'm gonna settle on, and I'm just gonna commit to it. It's really as easy as aligning the screw holes to the rail and then just screwing it in. Ba-da-da bing, ba-da-da boom. RGB, all that goodness and stuff. So the AIO fan cables are terribly messy because you got 2 fan cables to deal with. You've got a pump fan cable to deal with, and then you got 2 RGB fan cables to deal with, and you have the RGB water block cable to deal with. So this is why I hate AIOs, man. I just if you're a beginner, at the very least, listen to my advice, heed my advice, all right, and build with an air cooler. You can get a very good looking rig that performs very well if you use an air cooler. It's the performance difference. In fact, there are air coolers that beat water coolers quite healthily, especially if you're like talking about stuff that's in the same price range. It's no question about it, no question. Okay, so what we're gonna do next for cable management is we're gonna take all these fan cables that are connected to the radiator and stuff like that, and we're gonna look for this hole right here, right behind the radiator, and we're just going to try to hook the cables in and pull them out one by one. And basically, we're gonna manage these fan cables into the back of the motherboard this way. And because they're going behind the radiator, into this hole that's behind the radiator, everything is pretty well hidden, and then that is going to give you a much neater, cleaner looking rig, which is obviously what you want. So cable management advice, it's all about foresight, all about planning, what is going to obscure vision, what is going to be hidden, what is not going to be hidden, and then arrange your cables as such. We're just going to leave it hanging there, and then we're going to deal with it. What is next is going to be installing a bunch of other cables. Now, the last and final step generally with PC builds is your PCIe GPU, because this thing is big, chunky, and blocks your access to a lot of cables. So as excited as you are to install your GPU, what you want to do before this, because we're very close to this step, is to install everything else that will get blocked by your GPU. Remember that chess analogy? Installing something blocks the movement of many other things as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to deal with all the fan connectors in the back, connect it to the motherboard where possible, and then we're going to deal with your front panel connectors as well, out of sight, out of mind. Now, a lot of people are obsessive over getting it right, and to those people, I absolutely respect your attempts and respect your dedication, but I am not one of those people, so I will not give that much of a damn to it. So my all-in-one water cooler here has RGB. So it has this addressable RGB header. And while they are good for getting RGB done nicely, they are the worst when it comes to practicality, because they are two-pronged, so there's a female and a male connector. And not only that, they are not locking connectors. So they very easily come loose. So whenever you're tightening or like clamping things down, they just kind of fall apart, and it's a nightmare. I hate them. I don't know who designed these addressable RGB connectors, but whoever did does not deserve a pay raise, because they are disgusting. They are nightmarish to deal with. Find the right hole to stick it into. So the Corsair 4000X has a little fan hub in the back, but this is really just for people who are buying Corsair fans. If your AIO and stuff are Corsair, they're going to plug into this no problem, because it's a proprietary special Corsair connector. However, if you're using something that's more standard like me with this fractal lumen, thankfully it has kind of like a, what do you call it, daisy chained fan connector. So you just connect them to each other and just daisy chain them all together and manage them as such. Not a massive deal. I mean, not the most desirable either, but still, many people are not desirable and they still get married at the end of the day. So don't always have to have everything super hyper perfect. So once we've got all that daisy chained together, it makes it so that, you know, I only need to connect one device, which I will gladly accept that offer. I will plug it into the fan connector on the side of the motherboard right now. So this is clearly an unplanned build guide for obvious reasons, because I've been missing a part halfway through. Remember, it's called a vlog. It's called a build vlog, not a build guide. I'm not here to teach you how to build a PC. Linus does that way better than me. It's just fun to build PCs together, right? All right, so last but far from the least, we're going to do the most important step of any modern day PC build, which is to install the GPU. To do this, it's really as easy as removing the corresponding PCI slot covers that you are using. So these slot covers in the back right here, you just remove the ones that match the slots that you're using, and then you just, with these thumb screws that generally are quite tight, so you're going to need to use a screwdriver for them. See this? Like that. You take that out, you put that to the side, you call it a day. Slide that GPU. Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, is it neat? Pretty neat on the main side. And for the back side, guess what? I don't care. All right, that's it. It's been an ordeal trying to film the whole build process. There's a light on the motherboard. That's a good sign generally. We're going to say a little prayer, and of course it turns on. Don't doubt me, man. Don't doubt this. Here is the moment of truth. Is the power switch on? It is. The monitor is on as well. Let's turn it on, and let's try to get into the BIOS. So usually to hop into the BIOS is usually spamming F12 or delete on this particular motherboard. So if it does boot up, we want to hop straight into the BIOS. So that's that. Please post. If it doesn't post, I'll be a bit concerned. Finally, this PC is completed, it's been built, it's been finished, and it's working in tip-top condition. So I'm very, very relieved right now, but my cameras keep failing me and things keep crashing, so I'm just so frustrated. So if my delivery for the next 5 to 10 minutes is a bit dip and a bit tired, it's just because I am tired. It is what it is. So bear with me, give me a little bit of leeway. Let's get into it. Now, the main reason I did this video as a build vlog was actually because, well, I wanted to review the 4000X, but I thought that wouldn't be too interesting of a video just to review a case that a lot of people have talked about. So I was like, I'm gonna do a build vlog and give my opinions at the end. So let's talk about the 4000X, what I do like and what I don't like about this case. So what do I like? I like that it's packed in soft cell foam, so if it's shipped to you, it's not gonna crack or dent or things. It's very well packaged, so that's nice. I do like the accessory package. It's quite extensive, it's quite nice, and I think the manual is pretty clear, although it does lack a bit in terms of detail, and you need to go online to find even more guides about it, which is a bit of a bummer. But it is pretty nice of an accessory package, so that's good. I do like that it's very easy to build in this case. It's a standard orthodox layout, like very, very standard all-round ATX PC case. It's basically the status quo, and there's nothing wrong with that. It makes it very easy to build in. It's also very spacious, which definitely helps it be a very beginner-friendly experience. Like, it's got a lot of space for cable management, a lot of space for different parts. You don't have to worry too much about like space compatibility and things like that. You can fit basically anything you want to fit in here, no problem. And it's very easy to manage as well, just because of that nice chunky size. So that's good to see. I also like that fact that it still supports 2 SSDs and 2 full-size hard drives, which is actually getting less and less common these days. But hey, it does that, so that's good to see as well. I also do like the fact that this 4000X does lean heavily into the world of Corsair's ecosystem by including 3 RGB fans straight out the box in the front. These RGB fans not only look good, they are all very easy to manage because they are all plugged into Corsair's little fan hub in the back. So if you're building a PC with this case, I do recommend that you lean hard into the Corsair ecosystem and get Corsair fans, because that way you can plug them into the Corsair fan hub in the back and just like call it a day and have a much easier time cable managing than if you were to use different brand fans like I did here with these fractal design fans. And it made it a lot harder to cable manage because I was dealing with many different type of connectors and stuff. But if you are building in this case, I do recommend go all in on Corsair, because they have pretty good fans to begin with, and it does help with cable management, does help with convenience, and it's very nice because Corsair's stuff can all be controlled via a singular software, and that software is actually quite good. And I also do really like how the 4000X looks. I think it's quite a pretty case. Tempered glass fronts is really quite gorgeous. Overall, I think it looks really, really pretty, and all the fan filters are there and present, so you don't really have to worry too much about dust as well, so that's good. Okay, moving on, let's talk about the things that I don't like, because you gotta take the bad with the good with the bad. And I don't think any of the complaints here are really deal breakers. I just want to point them out because I'm trying to be a thorough, honest reviewer. Number one, the first thing I don't like about this case is definitely the build quality. It's just not up to par, I think, at this price range. It definitely loses to the $15 cheaper Fractal Define 7 compact case that I just came from. That one also had sound deadening material and was just more rigid overall than this case. That's not to say that this case does not have good build quality. With that tempered glass panel on, it's very rigid no matter what, but it does lose out a little bit to some of its competition, so Corsair can improve on that regard. But it's not a major deal breaker because I don't think too many people care too much about their case's build quality so long as it doesn't disintegrate on them. This is definitely way beyond that. This is definitely still quite well built. It's just not as good as some of its competitors, which is a bummer. Another thing I don't like about this case is definitely the fan layout. I think Corsair, you know, just if they included like a non-RGB fan in the back here, just a normal black or normal white fan, I would have appreciated it, because just having 3 intake fans in the front is pretty weird for airflow. Now, if you're using a Corsair AIO and you're exhausting heat out of the case through the AIO's fans, it makes perfect sense to not need the rear exhaust. But if you are someone who's using an air cooling system and you don't have any exhaust fans in the rig, I think it would be a good idea to buy at least a cheap fan and slap it in the back or in the top to act as an exhaust, because there's not a lot of balance in terms of the airflow setup here, so there's that. But it's not a major deal breaker. You can easily move the third fan in the bottom of the front to the back if you so desire, and they already give you 3 fans, so if you have that flexibility to move things around, although it might affect the aesthetic a little bit, because, you know, not having the full 3 front fans might be a bit weird looking to some people. And finally, my last but very small gripe is that this case does not come with any rubber grommets for cable management. I'm quite surprised and confused by this. Like, is this because of eco-friendliness, or is this because of something else? Because I have no idea why they won't include rubber grommets, because Corsair has included rubber grommets in their PC cases in the past. So I'm guessing it's like eco-friendliness rather than being cheapskate or anything. Because yeah, I don't know why they didn't include it. I do appreciate when cases have rubber grommets for cable management. It really helps hide cables. I think grommets still do help keep things a little bit neat. neater. So I would appreciate it if they could put it back in their future models and revisions of this. But if it's an eco-friendly decision, then I guess it makes sense not to have rubber grommets in here. It's not a massive deal, and it's definitely not a deal breaker. And what do I think about the Corsair 4000X? I think this is a good case. I mean, it's definitely an excellent choice in the market. Now, it's not necessarily the case that's for me, because I'm not a big RGB guy. In fact, I care more about silence and about like subtle refinements like build quality and I/O, which this does lack a little bit on. It only has one USB-A and one USB-C port in the front. I think it needs more. But apart from those things that I talked about as being gripes, like I generally think this case is a good choice for many people, especially for beginners who might be a bit more intimidated in building. This big, easy to deal with layout is going to be friendly to beginner builders. And also people who like maybe want to do a custom order loop or just bit really big GPUs in here, it's going to be a pretty good idea. I mean, you can't really go wrong with the 4000X. It's a very popular choice and for a good reason. And I think that pretty much sums it up. And with that, I'm going to end this video off here. I've spent just the 7 hours straight, I've not sat down, I think. What time is it right now? The time right now is 8:38 and I have not sat down. My legs are on fire just shooting this review. So if you appreciate my effort and the fact that I destroyed my voice to shoot this build vlog, which you guys have been asking for, make sure you like, comment and subscribe to show your support. New videos coming very soon, probably one tomorrow as well. So make sure you follow me on Instagram if you want to see behind the scenes and be updated for like giveaways and stuff. And join my Discord if you have any questions you want to ask. Like there are a lot of like friendly people there who are happy to help. And some people even know more than me about certain things like keyboards or Bitcoin mining. Like we've got specialists in our Discord, so it's really, really exciting, really nice place to be. Very chill hangout spot, so join it if you need help. I'm gonna end this video off here though. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. Adios, goodbye, 再见. Have a good time. So long.